Okay, this is the rear surround for the Audi, and as it comes out of the mold, it does not look like this. It looks like this over here. So as it comes out of the mold, we have all these extra pieces of fiberglass on it, and this is the finished look. There's a lot of extra edge here. If you want to take a look here, I've placed this in the car and made a scribe line where the rubber is, and then I cut it 1/4 of an inch past the scribe line. So for your use, your minimum measurement is 4.75 inches from the, go along the flat here. When you hit this little 45, that's where that mark is. 4.75 is to the outside up here. You can see that I trimmed away that whole section that fills this in on the mold. And it's about 1/2 inch of material that I trimmed off there. And then up here, I trimmed off something about 1/8 of an inch wider than this groove on the Audi, and that gets you where these tabs can then slide inside and between the Audi pieces of metal. On the bottom, it's the same thing. That little beginning of the 45 here is that mark. Out here, 8.5 inches to this outside corner. So if you want to play it safe, you can cut it about 8 5/8 at the bottom and 4 7/8 at the top, and then you can sand this down, this edge, as it tucks under the rubber on the Audi. On the front here, this trim, we usually do most of this for you, but it's about 1.5 inches of flange on the inside, and then we have about 1.5 inches of flange on the top here as well. You only use about 1 inch of it, and the other side is the same. So I'm going to position this in the car. Go ahead, Mike. And once again, we've prepped the car. You can see your cuts, flattened this area here. We've trimmed away this material. Mike has left his metal bar here, which is why we clear away so much material here. So this edge is going to tuck underneath this edge here. This is the tight part. These 2 layers, you might want to take a screwdriver to them and slide along that gap. It's very tight, but you'll see that end I started and opened it up. And then this end, even though it's tight, we'll slide it in. So I'm going to start on the other side, just because it's a little easier. I have that wide area there. And if you see how it fits, the tab goes on this side right here, this thicker part. And I lift up the other side and kind of wiggle. Once you get one corner, I'm just going to wiggle this a little bit. Once you get one side in, the rest, it's like a zipper. So that side is in, so I can hammer this in a little bit. I'll show you real quick the other side. So once that first side is in, just kind of wiggle this height, lift up and down if you want, and give that a little, it does. You might have a little massaging to do, but that's pretty. So that gets you in the game. See how that slid between the two. The tab is under. Now here's the door. See how we're away from the door gap. Here's this. Now I haven't pushed it in yet, but that gives you an idea. Open up your door. If you're trimmed correctly, you'll be able to push this in. That should go in lightly like that. And I'm like I said, I'll have my little rubber hammer here. I'm just going to give it a little. Now, every now and then, the inside flange is very thick, and you'll have to DA or sand that edge so that it's about 1/8 of an inch thick. So that's how I do it there. The other key measurement is down here. When you look at the top wall on the Audi, this is a wear, when you put it in the press brake to make a bend, this is the line that the die makes. It's a very handy line because just beyond that line is where you want to set your lower edge of your window. So what I do is I hold it, I draw a line, that 3/4 of an inch right there, and I actually take a self-tapper and I screw it into place. And basically that just holds this whole assembly. Just a little screw on one side. So that keeps the bottom from moving in and out. And this really is a little bit tricky. Meaning this whole thing with the hammer, you can move before you do that. If your groove is off a little bit, and that's indicated by this wing sticking out too far. So if the wing is out too far and you're having trouble pushing this in, you can take this and you can actually move it. You can see how this gap tightened up a little bit right here. It moves left to right even though it's loosely, screwed at the bottom. That's why I don't do it so tight at the bottom. And then once you're set at the top, about 1/8 of an inch from the seam, you can see the little gap here. You can see your little gap between the metal and the fiberglass. Once again, that's relatively adjustable. You can go in and out. We're going to be filling this with adhesive. Here's your side door. So hold the top in. The bottom is set where it is, and give it a good slam. Watch your finger. So that'll get you. See how it wants to come up, the rubber? You're going to be using those bolts underneath. Those 2 bolts right there, those 2 holes underneath where the old pillar mounted. You're going to use those to mount this and push this back in. So we're going to have a couple of little rivets or screws here, flush rivets, that pull this. We just don't want this bulb here. So you're going to pull that in and mount it flush, and then fill that gap above my finger with windshield adhesive so you don't get any leaks. Down here it's a little easier. You can see where the old lines are. It goes below this rubber gasket. This one tends to tuck in there. And remember, we're putting flush rivets. 1, 2, 3. If you see some area,